Hi there, folks. Thanks again for joining us for part two of our four-part series of Fun with iPhotos. Today we're going to be focusing on organizing our photos using the Photos app. And well, let's kind of get to it. So one more reminder here, just to let you know, we've opened up a new store on the North Shore. So for those folks that are out on from the coast or on the North Shore or West Vancouver, do visit our new store on 13th and Lonsdale on the North Shore. Robert and his new crew there would be happy to see you and help you out. One more thing that we were going to run through here, as well as we also have hard drives from a company called G-Tech that are fantastic places to store your photos and for backups as well. So if you're ever in the shop, do pop in, check out the Armor drives from G-Tech, and great place to store your photos and for backups. Okay, so last session through our photos seminar, we talked about capturing. So we grabbed photos from our from our cameras, from our external, from our iPhones, and from a little USB key, so we could get files or photos into our photo library by either getting them from a camera card, the camera itself, our iPhoto library from our phones, and also from emails and the like as well. So what we're going to start off with here, I am going to share my screen. And let's see here. Let's get rolling with this. We're going to share out the screen. And so we got Destin joining us today as well, so that would be outstanding. Let's get to our screen, and right now we should be seeing the my photo screen on the list here. And so from the last seminar, we grabbed a bunch of photos from various sources here, and I've already imported some of these photos into the library. So what do we do with all of these photos now? So we've got all of these different photos that we've brought in, and we just kind of dumped them in here. The first place, but we want to start looking at how we start to deal with all these photos, is to take a look at the library in the top left corner. So in the top left corner, when I select photos, this is the actual library. This is where your photos actually live. And we've got a couple of quick ways to sort and view these photos as we're working on them. I just want to kind of touch on a few things before we start here on how to configure the interface to show us the tools that we are going to need for our photos organization. First thing is first. When you select the top photos tag in the library here, this is going to show all of our photos chronologically based on time. I can go to the very top here, and it's going to show at least the photos that I've got in here from 2010, all the way down to my most current photos that have come up here. Sorry, that have come from my phone and from iCloud. Now, I want you to note in the top left corner here, there is a slider up in the top. This slider allows us to adjust the size of the thumbnails of the pictures so we can actually see them and get a good grip on the on what the photos actually are and maybe the photos that we want to pick. So let's just bring that slider a little further down here so I can see more of those photos effectively. Excellent. The other part that we have here as well that we covered in the last seminar is we can determine how these photos are seen. Particularly in the middle of the Photos app, you should see there we go. We should see years, months, and days. What this allows us to do is kind of quickly group these photos into the days that they were taken, and they'll organize them into this neat little memory kind of setup here. We can select months where it zooms out a little bit further, and I can see, let's say, here are the photos from June of 2011, July 2020, and the like. And then we can go out as far as years. And years will organize these into the photos by the years. As you can see here, 2010, 2011, and 2020. Okay, so now we're going to move on to one more thing. I'm just going to jump back to the all photos setup here. We can also decide what we want to see in photos by choosing View from the menu bar. And just a little further down here, I want you to note metadata. Metadata is the information that's actually stored in the photo, like titles, keywords, and things of that nature. I'd like you to actually turn most of these on. So when you turn that on, you will see that my photos now have a little title underneath them. This is the title that the camera gave them when they were shot. If we go further into this and select metadata again, we can go by keywords, whether the photo's been edited, and the like. So you'll see here, if I open up one of these photos now, just like so, ooh, this big creepy crawly bug, lovely. We can zoom back out and actually see the titles listed just underneath it. Next, we're going to go to the other interface change that I might suggest you use as well, is making sure that we have the faces tag turned on. So we're going to go to View, scroll down till we get Show Face Names. We'll come back to that in a moment, but for the time being, I want you to click this and turn it on for the moment. Last but not least, we also have, I want you to know about the sort field. Now, why this one is important is because if we choose this and click it and select Keep Sorted by Oldest Capture, this is what's going to organize everything chronologically in the photos list from top to bottom, from the oldest to the newest. And I think that is all of the organizing features we want to turn on for today. And let's kind of get into it. So in last week's seminar, I had captured all my photos from the devices and from the little USB sticks and camera cards. They were placed into the library chronologically, and that's all fine and dandy. But what if you want to, maybe you've taken a trip, you've gone to a number of different places, and this really doesn't help when they are all organized like this. What we're going to do today, we're going to start to create albums. And there's a couple of different ways we can go about creating albums. As from last week, if you import photos directly from the camera, we had the ability to, let's see here, let's go back to photos, import. We had the ability to pick the photos that we want to import and also create the album at the time of import as well. I'm going to kind of just cover that quickly because it's the first way we want to start working with something. So I've started the import process. I'm going to choose the photo or folder that I want to review for import. And we should see here that these are a bunch of little clips that I want to maybe bring into my library. And in here, you will notice that it says import to. This import to section here is really kind of great because we can either we can import them into the library, or we can import the selected photos or clips that we want and import them to some existing albums that we have created, or we can create a new album. So in this particular case, I'm going to select new album. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call this Pics for Seminars. Oops, if I could type, there we go. Excellent. So you'll notice here at the top where it says import to is now changed from library to Pics for Seminars. You will also see in my albums list in the sidebar here that a new empty album has been created called Pics for Seminars. And now we need to kind of choose all the photos that we want to import. So I'm going to select for this particular scenario, I'm going to choose import all new photos. I'm going to select that, and you will see here that my new album is now populating with the photos that I wished to be included in it. So that's one of the ways that we create albums from importing. It's a very handy way because if you can use this, this skill, it's going to be a lot easier to kind of get on top of managing your photos right off the get-go. One of the most common things I see when I'm working with people in one-on-one sessions here at the shop is that they might just connect their camera and import, 2,000 photos. That kind of makes things really difficult because not everybody's got the time to sit down and kind of decide which photos belong in what albums when they do it later on. So if you could do this on import, this will help you organize your photos in a much more efficient manner. The other way to start creating albums, and just a little info about albums. When you are creating albums, albums are pointers to where your photos are in your library. They're not actually duplicating the photos in your library as well. So you don't have to worry about if you put one photo in an album or into even another album that you are creating duplicates and filling up more of your storage. So good thing to know that the photos that are being added to albums aren't actually being duplicated. They're just pointing to where they live in your album, in your library. So as you can see here from the last session, I created a couple of albums here already. And so I've got a few started off. I got China, I've got Hanoi. Now I know I've got a bunch of different photos in here from some trips that I've done previously. And we're going to create some additional albums from these photos. And we're going to cover how we do that right now. So the first way, we're going to look in the sidebar here, and we're going to move down and scroll down to albums. Yours might show up, if there's no albums yet created, they might show up like so. If you do have some albums in here, there will be a little arrow next to it that will show you, once you click it, it'll show the existing albums that are already created and how we can organize them. Now, the first way to create an album is to create an album by going to the albums, my albums item here in the sidebar. And you will notice once I mouse over it that a little plus sign shows up. If I select this plus sign, it's going to ask me to create either an album, a smart album, or a folder. I'm just going to create a normal album, which means that I'm going to determine what goes into these by either drag and dropping or selecting the photos that are going to be added to it. So I know I've taken a trip from these photos to Malaysia, and I visited two separate places there. One was Malacca and one was Kuala Lumpur. Fantastic trip. If you ever get a chance to go over there, it's a lot of fun over there. So I'm going to create albums. I'm going to name this album Malaysia. Actually, let's do Kuala Lumpur. PUR, I think is how it's spelled. Remember off the top of my head. So I've created an album here called Kuala Lumpur, and now I need to send some photos to this. So I know by going through my albums here that I recognize these ones here from Kuala Lumpur all the way down to, let's see here, a little bit further. Well, actually, it was quite a lot of photos from that one. Let's actually zoom out a little further to months, and I can get a better overview of that. And I could tell here that June 2011, I was kind of taking a lot of trips here, and I've got some from China, some from Kuala Lumpur. They're all kind of mixed into that same year or same month on that trip. So we're going to go back to this a little further, and we're going to make a selection. So I know that this bit right here, this was Malacca. I'm going to scroll down a little further. This is definitely Kuala Lumpur, and we're going to make our first selection, just like so. You'll notice that the photo is selected because there is a blue selection bar around that photo. I'm going to select a few more by holding down the Command key, and while holding it, click on all the photos I wish to include in this. So we'll see, I want that one, this one, and we're going to scroll all the way down to about right here. We had some great temples in Kuala Lumpur that we were looking at as well, and I think that's about where, just after the Petronas Towers. There we go. Excellent. So I know that that is from this photo to this photo. I've made that selection. And from the selection, I can now click and drag these photos and drag them to this album here. Now when I select it, you will see all the photos, or the ones that I at least selected, have ended up into my album. So that's a drag and drop technique. So we first create the album by clicking the plus sign next to My Albums, create the album, and then pick the photos that we want to add to it. The other way that we can do this is to go back to the photo library, and this time we're going to just select a range of photos. And I know that this bit here was the trip to Malacca. And I'm going to start by choosing this photo with a really tasty chicken shop there. We'll make this just a little larger so I can see these photos a little bit more effectively. And there is the first photo that I want to select. I'm going to scroll down to the next one. So again, this selection technique is going to be called shift clicking. I'm starting with the first picture selected. I'm going to scroll down to the next one, which I know from Malacca was, go, this one right here. So you see now that, so I've selected my first photo, I held down shift, and then I selected the last photo in that range, and you'll now see that all of these are selected with that blue box around them. What I'm going to do now is I want you to take two fingers and click the selection, and you'll notice that we get a little menu that pops up here. And one of the menu items is Add To. When we scroll down to that, it's going to ask us to either add to an existing album that I have here or create a new album. I'm going to select a new album. And once I've done that, you'll see that the album shows up in the sidebar, waiting for me to rename it. I'm going to call this Malacca. And once I do this, all of those photos that I have selected are now in, well, one, they're all Malacca, and they are all organized into these albums here now as well. So the first way we created an album was to create the album first, then drag and drop the photos that we want into it. The second way that we've created an album, which is what I just did now, was to select the range of photos that you want. And then I right-clicked or two-finger clicked my selection, and I selected Add To and New Album. Now, if I happen to find here that there's another couple of photos that belong to that Malacca album, I can definitely go, oh, here we go. I know that this was one of the two buildings in Malacca, so I'm going to select this one and this one. And I'm going to take two fingers and click on the trackpad on this photo. And I'm going to also add those to Malacca. Now, the cool part is I've already got, because I've already created it, it's now also showing me add to Malacca. I can select that, and those photos have now been added as well. It should be the last ones on the list. Now, as you start to create all of these different albums, this can kind of get to become a really, really long list. So what I want to show here is we have another great little feature in here in the albums section called folders. Now, folders don't create, you don't put photos into it. You actually put your albums into it. And this is a really great way to organize things. Basically, let's say in my particular case, I'm going to call this folder trips, trips that I've taken around the world. And what we're going to do is we're going to add the albums that belong with trips to it. And we start off by just selecting the album that you want. In this case, Malacca, Kuala Lumpur, and I promise you I will get the right spelling for that at some point. I'm going to drag and drop Malacca to the trips folder. And you will see that it opens up and we now have Malacca in here. I'm just going to grab the rest of these as well, China, Vietnam, and Hanoi, and the like. And we'll drop them down in here for trips. So you can see that these are now easily organized. Now, the reason why this is really kind of handy is albums, again, can be pointers to your photos that live in your album. And you can have more than one photo in the albums. So I know that let's see here, we'll go to photos again. I know I've got a trip from Revelstoke that I took here in a ski trip. And, oh, perfect. There they are at the very top. I'm going to create one called Revelstoke. Again, I'm selecting this picture here because I know that's the first day. And we're going to scroll down all the way to the last picture that I know was from our trip. And that is definitely not, because there's no snow. I will select this, right click, add to a new album. And I'm going to call this Revelstoke, or ski trip, actually, at Revi. So I now have these albums all set up, and this is kind of the cool part is now that I've got folders set up here, this can really help because in a lot of one-on-one sessions that I've seen, people have this ridiculously long list of albums, and it becomes really difficult to start to find some of the content you're looking for. This will basically help us find these photos a lot quicker. Now, so that's the album side of things. There's one more album or one more album I want to talk about, which is called the Smart album. Now, Smart albums are a little bit different from the regular albums in that when I create one of these, this type of album's got some smarts that can basically start to drill down through your photos and find photos that belong to a certain criteria or keyword or anything like that, and group them automatically into an album. So I know if I wanted to say, well, let's say Smart album, we're going to call this a test one just for now. But the idea here is it's going to collect the photos with the criteria that you specify here and automatically put them to the album. So let's say we go by either the title, we go by person, keyword, et cetera, et cetera. We can choose that by different metadata that is included in the photos. So for example, you'll see here that we can select by album. We can go by date captured, date added, the file name. I actually want to kind of choose by camera model. So on a couple of trips here, some of the photos were shot on an iPhone. Some of the photos were shot on my roommate's really nice DSLR camera. So these are some of the different ways that we can create albums based on the criteria in the actual photo files themselves. So for example, if I select camera model, and it's going to ask us select photo based on camera model includes, Canon. Oh, there we go. So I know for a fact that my roommate's was a Canon EOS 5D, and I'm going to select OK and see. Well, right now it's telling us there's no matches, so that tells me that the camera did not add its identifier to the photo. So I'm going to use a different criteria. Let's see if I'm going to try a different one. Instead of camera model, we're going to go by, let's say, description, or maybe even location if it gives it to us. Go actually by album. So I've got 306 items that have been added to albums down here. Now, let's say I wanted to kind of make this a little bit, kind of drill down a little further. So it's going to take the photos that are in albums, and we're going to ask, okay, well, shop content, because that's one that I have down there. And we'll hit select OK. And you'll see that this test album here has gathered up all of the photos that belong or that fit the criteria, and it has created a new album called Test. And just be mindful here, you can rename these at any time as well. So for example, under the test section here, I can maybe call this rename Smart Album and call this Walk to Work, or actually Shop Projects or Shop Pictures. This basically means that when I do this, when I use the Smart Album, anything that is eventually added to shop content will be automatically added to this Smart Album as well. That also means that if I add, let's say, this photo and add it to shop content, we should see in the Smart Album that that photo has found its way to it as well. And there it is right up in the top corner. Again, showing the most recent one added to it. Now, the other thing that we can do while we are in albums, and that's any album for that matter, is I want you to note in the top right corner, we have a little icon up here that says showing. This little icon here allows us to kind of filter through what we are seeing in this album. So for example, if there were any edited photos that I worked on in here, you'll see that I haven't edited anything yet in this album, but if I did, any edited photos would be the only things viewing. If I just choose photos and take out the edited ones, you'll see that it is just showing photos. Now, if I had videos in this album as well, I could uncheck photos, check video, and oh, look at that. So in the shop photo here, this in this album, it's identified just the videos that I've got in here as well. So this is a really handy way to kind of drill down into your photos that have been grouped into albums. So that kind of covers the albums and organizing that. Now, sorry, covers the albums and covers the folder side of things. Now, this is how you can manually make and deal with these albums. There is one more thing that I would like to talk about as far as helping us organize photos. There is a very powerful feature in Photos called, that Photos usually keeps, and it's called metadata. Now, if anyone has ever used Apple's old Aperture program or is a Lightroom user, you might be familiar with keywords and metadata. And what this is let's say I go to Photos. I'm just going to jump up to our library here again. And I'm just going to choose a random photo here. So I know that this was Revelstoke. And if I go to our albums in Revelstoke, which is kind of handy, I'll see them all. I'm going to select all of these photos, and I am going to select the information button, which is in the top of the menu bar with a circle with the letter I in the icon. If you select this, all of these photos, it's going to display the information for it. Let me try this again. I'm going to choose just the one photo because I know that these first two photos here with me and my friend Pat, this was around when Canada's hockey team kicked butt in the Olympics, and we had a great big celebration outside. So I want to kind of, put some extra information about this photo because it was a really special and awesome time. I'm going to select the photo. You see the blue box around it. I'm going to go up to the information button where it says I in the top right. And you'll see here that we've got an information window that has popped up that gives us the information about this photo. This photo does not yet have a title, and if we wanted to, we could add a title. It also has the name of the file, which the camera gave it, and it also says the date when this was taken. So it's very cool. It also shows us that this photo was taken on a Canon EOS 30D, and these were the settings that were used at the camera at that time. Now, the other items underneath it here are descriptions, keywords, and locations. So we don't see any location information on here at all. But I know that this was in Vancouver, downtown in Granville, at one of the pubs around there. So what we're going to do is I'm going to add that information to this photo. And I know for a fact that that same information belongs with this photo and this photo. You'll see here that I have selected them both. I'm going to add a location, and I'm going to call this Vancouver. Now, as I'm typing this in, you will notice that it is starting to kind of guess where I might have been, where I might have been or what I might be typing in here. And I know that this is definitely not, we're going to go Vancouver, BC, Canada, fantastic. And wow, you'll see here now that once I've added this location, it has now linked this with an Apple Maps location. And if I wanted to go a little bit further, I can zoom in to this map location. And I know that this was a little closer downtown, so I can move this pin. I can either move the pin, there we go, and move that to downtown, which is right about there on Granville Street. So now what happens is if I actually go and look at places in my library, I should see a few more of those photos once it actually uploads that data to the Places app, because I've now tagged this photo with a location. Now that will update in a little bit while it uploads to iCloud. But the idea here is you have extra information that you can add to these photos. The next one I also want to add to the photos one is called keywords. Keywords is metadata that we can add to photos. I'll take these same two photos again, or actually just the one, and we're going to select Get Info again. And I want to add a keyword. Now, keywords are a very powerful way to tag your photos, in a sense, with all sorts of different information. So, for example, one keyword I might add to this is Olympics, or hockey, because this was the day that the Canadian hockey team kicked butt in the Olympics. I've added hockey to it. I could also, because this was the first day on my Revy trip, I can also add that too. And I can also select, really anything that I want in here as far as a keyword. Now, why this is important is when you start adding keywords and all this extra metadata to it, you will be able to go up here in the search bar of photos, click it, and as I type, I'm going to type Revy, and you will see up here that keywords the search field is now looking through all of the photos and finding anything that relates to Revy. So for example, this is the results as to what it found. It found one photo that it is selected, the very top one right here. This one has the location information built into it. So when I searched for Revy, it's looking for the albums that might have the name Revy. It's looking for photos that might have the places set up with Revy or Revelstoke. And specifically down here, we've got keywords. And as you can see here, I actually just named this or tagged this with Revy, and I can now search this with this feature as well. If I took an additional thing here and put Revy and Chris, actually, let's do that again. We'll take that same photo. I'm going to add a few more keywords to this as well. And so I selected the photo, Get Info, and I'm going to add Chris, my friend Chris, to this because I know he was there that day as well. And this will now show up when I type Revy again. And if I add Chris to it, let's see if Chris adds in this keyword search as well. Nothing. But now if I go back and do that very same thing again, instead of typing Revy, I type in Chris. There are the photos. Because I tagged it, we found this and this. And that, again, that is showing up because I've selected it, and Chris is one of the keywords that I had used or tagged this photo with as well. You can tag multiple photos with keywords and information. And because we set up albums, this is a great way to kind of add additional information to this. So for example, I know that this one and this one, yes, it was the start of our Revy trip, but they were actually taken in Vancouver. So I'm going to go to Get Info and add a few other things to this. Let's go, that's our location, description. And we're going to add, now because we've also got Vancouver already in here, that's also going to help as well. Now I want to take the rest of these. So actually, let me try that again. these two photos, get info. I'm also going to type Vancouver. And these other photos that were actually at Revelstoke, starting here. Go to the very bottom one. Go back to I and click keywords. I'm going to call this mountain. And specifically, we'll also add the location for Revelstoke on here as well. Let me type get info, add a location. And these were definitely at Revelstoke Mountain Resort. So when I tag this, are you sure you want to apply this to all of those photos? Yes, they are. And now all of these photos will have that the locations stamped right to them as well. Now, once all of the photos have gone through, it will start to tag those photos with a geolocation. Now, two more things before we kind of start to go into some questions here that I want to cover is people and places. So if you look in your library here, Apple's got a little bit of an AI engine here where it will start to go through your photos and start to tag people. Now or basically scan your photos for faces that you can then tag. Now, this does take quite a while, so be patient with this. It could take up to a week depending on how many photos that you have as well. So specifically, I have selected people in the library section here, and currently it's detected 2 faces through a lot of different photos here, and it's asking who these people are. So by using this tool, there's me. I'm going to add my name to this called SeaBass, and my other friend here, Chris. And what this is going to do now is that every picture that it is found with my face on it, it's going to basically find. Now, again, this is going to take a little while this starts to go through the pictures and works. It happens in the background, so give it some time if you don't see the results you're looking for right off the get-go. But what it'll do now is if I look through any of these pictures that has my face in it, or that's detected with my face in it, and you'll see here that it hasn't yet detected this face. So if I wanted to, if I didn't want to wait for Apple's tools to go at it to get this tagged, I could add mine to it directly right here. And you'll see here, it's already got that. Great. So that face is tagged. Now, why this is important. If you have this turned on, it means that if I go up to the search section, right up in the top here again, and I type in SeaBass, you'll see that it is starting to populate with all of the photos of me, or that it is detected. And you'll see that on a few of these things as well. It's found some with my face in a few things. So it's found people. If I select this now, you'll see that the 2 photos that have been tagged are ready to go. If I select faces, this will get in a little tighter. And as you are looking at this, you'll see all of the other information that it has found about this particular photo as well. Specifically, here are photos that it found in the library. Here are some places that it found. So if I select this, it will show likely just that one photo. And last but not least, so that's about faces. Last but not least, for organizing, we can go to places as well. Now, my iPhone, not all cameras do this, by the way, but my iPhone or anyone's phone usually has a feature called location services turned on. When that is turned on for the Photos app or the camera, the iPhone kind of relays where you are taking that picture at that time and stamps the photo you've taken with that information. Why that's cool is when we select the Places map or the Places field in the library, you will be presented with a big map of the world, and anything that's got some photos here will show up in the list on the map. So if you keep double clicking that, it will zoom in a little bit more, et cetera, and until we get right down to all of these photos that were taken in Vancouver. Now, if we go back out or zoom out a little bit more, select places, we can also look at the map in satellite mode, which kind of makes it look like Google Earth. You can zoom out and you'll see more of a map, kind of like what we got in Google Earth. And if we zoom out all the way with the same tools, there we are, me way over here on the West Coast, and you can move this around and look at it as well. You can also view this as grid, which basically takes us back to, it'll show us all the things that were about Vancouver and all the photos that belong to it. I've got one more thing to kind of point out here before we move on is I had mentioned about adding keywords earlier. Now, as your library, as Apple's AI goes through the library, it's going to start to find photos or tag photos by using, so for example, if you got a lot of pictures of flowers or a lot of pictures of birds or something along those lines, this will start, now it's not going to do it right now, but after it's been running for a little while and you've had your computer on, Apple's AI is going to go through and start tagging things like flowers, birds, dogs, pets, etc. It's got some smarts behind there, but it just needs time to work. If you don't want to wait for it again, we can use keywords. Now, the other place you can get in here and show keywords is in the item up in the top right corner called Showing. Right now it's set to all items, but one of the other things I can use is what's called the Keyword Manager. And you'll see here that a group, this is showing me all of the keywords that I have done at the moment. You'll see here that we've got a few things that can be added to, some current keywords that are already in here. If you wanted to add more, you can go through here and add them. So let's say friends, F-R-I-E-N-S. We can now use this tag right here, oops, and add them to this list. So let's say here, these are friends that we went to on a ski trip, and I can add that new keyword that we created there to it as well. You'll also notice in the info section here that it's found a few more faces here. It's found my friend Chris and my friend James and Pat. If I select those, I can now start to add more information or keywords to this photo as well. So for example, people. It's found Patrick here, and it's asking us who this person is. So I'm going to select Add Name in the top, and I'm going to add Pat. Now this person is named Pat. I select Done, and what will happen, it updates all of the photo libraries with anything, with any face that has Pat in it, any picture that has Pat in it, and it's recognized the face. This is now adding, it will now allow us to filter through it. So for example, same with my friend Chris down here. If I select this one, it's going to show me everything that it's found so far. And you'll see here that it's now starting to add this to the list. Now, again, give it some time. This is something that Apple's AI does take a little while to do and runs in the background as it's doing this. Okay, I think we've got most of the things covered for organizing. Let's turn this over to some questions now, and let's see how this works. I think we've got Robert might be on the horn as well, and let's see if we get some questions going here. All right, so let's stop the share here, and let's see what we've got so far in the chat window here. So I got Joseph Cruz is asking, I purchased 128 gig, the photo stick to save all of my photos. Can these organizing techniques organize my saved stick? Not particularly. So if I'm understanding you correctly, if you have like a USB thumb drive or anything else like this, and you want to organize it, you're going to have to use you can organize them yourself into folders and the like. But really the whole point of Apple Photos is that it kind of takes care of some of the nitty gritty as far as the, it takes care of organizing and managing and tagging all this information automatically. So the way to use a USB key is to import those photos from your USB key into your photos library. That way it'll be included in there and you can organize them within Apple Photos. Hope that helps. Let's see here, I've got Jeff Graham. Is there a library where I can watch this seminar again? Yes, Jeff, these videos are going to be uploaded in the near future. So do keep an eye out on our newsletter. They will be posted up very, very soon so you can review this again. Hope that helps there, Jeff. And let's see, we got Jennifer Jordan. This is very useful, thanks. I can't figure out how to delete photos from my library, even if deleted from the library, as they still seem to exist in the iCloud. How can I do this? Okay. If I'm understanding you right, Jennifer, if you are using iCloud, it means that any of your devices that are signed in with an Apple ID, whether that's a phone or your computer, and has iCloud Photos turned on, it means that that is using one shared shoebox full of photos that lives up in Apple's servers. So essentially what that means is if you take a picture with your phone, that picture goes up to the cloud and the full resolution photo is stored there. And then if you have any other devices that are signed in with your, that are using iCloud Photos, it means that they will find that photo down at the bottom, or sorry, in their library as well. The idea is if you delete it from one device, it will be deleted from all of the devices, including from the cloud. If you are not using iCloud Photos, that means that you're kind of managing two separate shoe boxes full of photos. So for example, some people might be connecting their phone to their iMac at home, and it's not connected to iCloud. It means if you delete it there, it's not being deleted anywhere else. I hope that helps. Marilyn Tom is asking, if I import from other sources, will Apple's AI recognize the duplicate? We kind of covered that in the capture side of things, but other sources, it's going to recognize duplicates if the same file name is used or is already located in the library. So for example, I'm just going to jump to share the screen here again and just kind of give you an example. It's a kind of an important one because that's something that a lot of folks sometimes struggle with in that regard. Let's see here. Got that on. Got screen up. Now, to answer that question about the duplicates, I have the same USB key that I imported some of these photos from to demonstrate this. So last session or last seminar, I grabbed a USB key that had my photos on it and would try to import from those. Now, again, all of this is based on, there we go. All right, USB stick is in. And let's see if that turns up. Now, when I go to File, Import, and I choose the, let's see, is it showing up yet? Location. Let's make sure this is going over to, one more time here. Let's see. Actually, no, let's just grab from my phone here. So I've got one of my phones connected here, and you'll see what happens here. So I've asked it to import, and you'll see here that it's saying these 16 photos that are already on my phone are already imported. So if you have files that you want to bring into your Apple photo library that are already in there with the same title, it will let you know right here. And it'll say already imported, so you do not have to bring those back in for a second time. I hope that helps. Bonnie, what is the difference between library and iPhotos? Well, so iPhoto and Photos are kind of one of the same. In the early days, Apple started off with a program called iPhotos. Now, iPhotos creates, like when you use it, it automatically, by default, in your picture folder, creates a library. It's a single piece of, it's kind of like a folder. And what it does, if you look here, I've gone to Finder, I have gone to my picture folder, and you will see this one icon here called the Photos Library. This is the library that resides on your device that holds the pictures and all of the organizational data that goes along with this. You're not meant to be goofing around with this unless there's some serious trouble with this. But this is where Apple Photos will store all of that organizational information. It also works in tandem with the library up in the cloud, or in this case called your iCloud photo library. So if I import pictures, it's going to bring the small thumbnail versions into my local library on the on my computer, but the full res versions of the photos and videos will be uploaded to the cloud servers, providing you have enough space. I hope that helps there, Bonnie. And Bonnie's also asking, how do we get rid of duplicates? That's going to be in our, that's a good question. There's not a way to really do it in Apple Photos yet, but there are some programs like one called Power Photos from a company called Fat Cat Software that will help you go through your libraries and delete them. Have a look at it. It's about 30 bucks and whatnot, but there's some other tools out there. But that one I personally used, and it's been name checked in a lot of training materials as well. Have a look at it, but as always, make sure you've got backups of all of these photos before you mess around with these things, particularly if you're an iCloud user, because the changes you make on one device will happen on all of them. The flip side is if you are not using iCloud, this is the perfect time to decide or use and pick up a hard drive to make sure you've got those photos all backed up. I hope that helps. Let's see here. Can I put photos on my laptop? Mary is asking, can I put photos on my laptop but then delete them from iCloud? Delete these from my laptop. And there is a way to kind of do that. It really starts off, I'm going to show you something here, because for folks that have laptops with small storage, you can decide to use a different, you can disassociate your, let me try that again. There's a way to kind of break the iCloud library and your local library, but it's a little on the risky side in that your computer is either participating in the iCloud library or it is not. If your laptop is not participating in the iCloud library, you can get your photos. Another way to get your photos is to, should be able to see this on the screen now, I hope. Destin, can you confirm that? Should be like a web browser. Excellent. You can actually go to iCloud.com. Now, why that's important is, let's say you lost your phone, you don't have access to your computer and whatnot. The iCloud via the web allows us to get at all of those goodies that, all of your content, and allow you access from the web to do that. So for example, I think it's this one. Just try that. So I don't have access to that one just at the moment, but you can get at all of your photos and download those individually from the iCloud website as well. That includes your email and everything else that belongs with iCloud. iCloud.com allows you to get all of it. You just got to sign in with your Apple ID and give that a whirl. All right, I've got a couple more questions left here. I see Craig Strickland is, I just acquired an Epson Fast Photo Scanner. I am scanning many hundreds of images. All are pre-sorted. The scan processor records year, season, month, short, title, etc. Scanner is connected to PC. What is the best way to move this huge inventory into our Apple iMacs? Actually, it's a great question. The best way, long and short, if I'm understanding this question correctly, if you've got a mess of photos that are already imported, that are already residing on a hard drive from a PC, and you want to bring those in, I might suggest to get these, to kind of maintain the hard work that you've already done pre-sorting these, you can connect the hard drive to the Mac, and let's say you've organized your folders in maybe by trip, by maybe an event or something like that. I would recommend importing the photos by folders. So for example, if I go to import and choose, when I go to import, I will choose let me just actually do that. Choose import and then choose the folder that you want to review for import to your photos album. This allows you to, again, create the albums through the import process. So you should see on screen here that I've got, no, let's do that again. Let's share that screen out one more time. Okay, so on screen here, let me just do this one more time. If I go up and I select File, Import, I have, you can direct the import window to the drive that is connected. Sadly, mine's not showing up, but you can instead, let's say, for example, here in my picture folder, I've got a folder called graphics. And maybe you've done something like this as well in your system. I'm going to select just this folder to review for import, and I have the ability up here, picks for seminars. So if I wanted to create a new library, or sorry, not a new library, a new album, this would be the best way to do it. So this way you've got the organizational structure, or the names at least, of those folders, and you bring them in this way. Apple should then, if you've already tagged the photos and whatnot, it should read that metadata, like names, title of that particular folder, and bring that same data in so you can organize that. You should be able to search for keywords using that method as well. But the idea is import, pick the folder, and then create the album on import as you are doing it right at this time. That's going to be the easiest way to do that. I hope that helps. Hope that helps there, Greg. Well, looks like we're kind of getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here on time here, so I think we're going to wind this down. So again, keep an eye out for some deals on some hard drives that are coming around, and make sure you've got backups of your folders. That's one of the big things. Also, join us for the next session. I think is going to be, not next week, but the week after, and it's going to be about editing photos. So things like how do we get rid of red eye, how do we crop photos, and how can we kind of play with the color and filters. So that's going to be the next session coming up. Stay tuned, and thanks for joining us today.